baby. Hello, sir.
I can do this. Bentley did this. I can land on my knees and do a flip.
Oh,
Do you guys want
goodness.
to see it again?
Let Shika go. Let Shika go. Whee! I think it was around this time last December we were preparing for that super cold, like negative 30-degree wind chill type dip, and today it's like 65 degrees, which is insane. So I've got another evening type vlog for you today. It's a little bit different. A lot of stuff on farms and homesteads is relatively the same. I've already fed the girls their hay. We need to run around and get the boys, and I'm going to be collecting the rubber feed pans that I had been feeding them in. I'm going to meet you on the other side today. Okay? I'll meet you over there. Hey boys. I'm going to feed you by the gate today. So it was in the beginning of Vlogmas that we banded 2 of the bucks that were in here, and they're drying up really nicely. So all's going well. You're still kind of stinky. Can I have this, please? I think I've got as many hanging feeders out in these pens as I'm gonna need, so I can put these away. Now there he is. Hello. On second thought, I think I'm going to allocate this bigger feeder as kind of a hay tray. Maybe they'll waste less, who knows. You're such a baby still. You're such a baby. Can I take this? I intend to put the electric netting back to work really soon. Could you see all this grass? Our winter grass is actually quite plentiful here. So I would like to take advantage of it. That is one of the main intentions of getting this electric netting, and I haven't used it as much as I really intended to. See all this? It's lovely. I found some really cool fence line hanging hay feeders, and I plan to invest in quite a few of those in probably the next month or two. Probably by the time hay season is over, I will have purchased all that I want, but we'll have them for next year. Hello, sir. I don't think we have very many chickens left that know what that means. I trained our first batch of chickens that we got in 2019 to come when they heard that noise because they knew there was food. This looks like milk. It's actually the whey from me making mozzarella cheese earlier. Usually when I make mozzarella cheese, there's a creamy whey that's left over. Every single time I try to make ricotta cheese out of that milky whey, and it does not work every time. I don't know exactly what I'm doing wrong, but it's my failed attempt, but thankfully it's still good for animal feed. Just gonna take one to try it, and then they'll all be on it. I think it was about this time last year that Levi got this IBC tote that used to house soy-based ink in it for like $60, and he rerouted our gutter to go into it in order to give us rainwater to use either in the garden or for the animals. I have a submersible pump that can go in here and attach to a hose and water the garden, but I have not set it up for that yet. So far it's just been like supplemental for animal waters, and it's been awesome. like to give the rabbits that are in these grow out pens water in these bowls, especially this time of year. Most of the year we are raising rabbits through cold weather where it freezes at night, and when it gets really cold, we're not there yet, but when it gets really cold, the ice that does freeze in these bowls is really easy to pop out and top off with warm water. But the issue that I'm seeing, especially with this particular group, is that these smaller bowls are much easier to flip over, and so I don't know sometimes how long the bowl has been completely dry because it's been flipped over. So these bigger bowls that we took from the goats, these are going to be a lot less likely to flip on them. Plus they hold more water, and that's not a bad thing. It does decrease their floor space by a little bit, but I think that matters less than having access to water all the time. I owe you guys a garden tour. I am behind on my garden tours, but this time of year it's not that big of a deal. There are some decent changes going on with the garden, but we'll get into that soon, I promise. Actually, it was coming out here to see what greens I could scavenge. Some of the lettuce looks like it's actually been damaged, maybe by a freeze. It really does look like frost damage, which is kind of strange, to be honest. Same thing over here. Like, nothing looks super great out here. I could probably scavenge some kind of substantial green out of the garden right now, but I think I'm just gonna leave it. I am hoping that some of these greens that have been apparently frost damaged do come back. I don't know. The frost that we had the other night was 23, and I've mentioned it before, when your temperatures go up and down as crazy as ours do, a lot of frost tolerant and cold hardy things don't handle that well, and so I think we're just seeing the evidence of that here. All right, so what I'm making tonight is going to be essentially an open-faced sandwich. So I try to do proteins for dinner every night, like a substantial protein, like a meat. I don't always do that, but when I am pressed for time, I am very glad that I have my canned meats on hand. We use the canned ham a lot. I actually did that last night with dinner. Our local Amish store does a large meat sale at the end of every year, so we took advantage of that and bought lots of turkey and put that in cans. But what we're going to be using tonight is actually some of our rabbit meat. And if you are really unsure how to cook rabbit meat, this is the best way that I found for beginners to really deal with rabbit meat. You do can it with the bones in, and it can be a little bit tedious to take the bones out, but this is a great way to store it as well as use the meat, because you can use it in any way that you would use cooked shredded chicken. This meat was put into the jar raw, and then it cooked inside the jar while I had it in the pressure canner for, I believe it's 90 minutes for quarts, and so this is absolutely fully cooked and ready to eat straight out of the jar. You want to be careful when you're deboning canned rabbit, because some of the little tiny bones, especially where the joints are, they can come off and end up in your shredded rabbit down below, and it's really not fun to bite into a small little rabbit bone when you don't expect it. When I packed up this rabbit into the jar, I did not put any water in the jar, so this is like bone broth that came out of the meat and the bones, and this is very lovely. I will use it this week, so it's absolutely worth saving. Okay, this is what we have: meat, bones, and broth from 1 quart. Now, because my bruschetta in a jar is going to have lots of flavor, I'm not going to worry about doing more than a little bit of salt and pepper plus the mayonnaise in the meat. I did salt this rabbit before I put it in the can, but it's not exactly enough to season it. It's not necessary to salt it before you jar it up. I always put a little bit more too when I use it. You know what too? I don't have any fresh basil, but I do have this dried basil from the store. So that will be nice. Since those bones have already been through the pressure cooker, when you feel them, they just like kind of disintegrate. They are already used up, so I won't save those bones to reuse again. There's nothing good left in them. Definitely worth putting in the compost pile, though. That's good calcium for the garden. My bowl's kind of tiny. See how nice that looks? The only difference that I think anybody who hasn't had rabbit before could detect to maybe clue them in that this isn't chicken is the texture. Rabbit has a much finer texture. The fibers of the muscles are much smaller and more delicate. It's softer meat. So I think that's the only difference. It tastes very similar in this way. I mentioned that I made mozzarella earlier, and this is some of that. So I'm gonna pop this out and put it on here so we can have a nice melty cheese on top.
I wish my camera was as pretty as she really is.
Mm-hmm.
She's really pretty.
Yeah, cameras don't always pick up exactly what you want them to.
Yeah.
Can you guys, the alarm's gonna be going off soon for chores.
It just did. The voice just turned it off.
Well, can you kindly remind them that it's chore time? Good old melty cheese. So I drained the juices out of the canned bruschetta, and that juice would be really great to hang on to for refrigerator pickled eggs. We have done pickled eggs in that same brine before, and they're lovely. She came inside the house earlier, and all I heard was squawking, and I just said, "What did you catch this time?" And she goes, "A starling in Daddy's tractor." I don't think I have a video on this tomato bruschetta in a jar, but I will link it in the description box below. I do, however, have a video on making mozzarella cheese out of goat's milk, and I'll leave that up here.